So, Dean, finding new opportunities in retail can't be easy.
Right.
There's a lot of market saturation.
Retail's been around a long time.
There's a lot of competition.
A lot of competition.
A lot of technology options.
Yeah, this is true.
I mean,
this is true.
If we were to just go and find all the stuff for retail that we have sitting in our warehouse, I'm sure it would take days.
Yeah, just walk NRF. It's like, it's just new stuff everywhere.
Lots of stuff out there.
Yeah.
But it's also a lucrative industry.
Ooh.
And if you do win business, it's can be pretty good for you. That's a nice win that everyone wants.
Yes.
So we want to give you an actual edge by equipping you with some end user data.
Nice.
Actual insights from retailers about the tech they use, wish list items, support preferences. And then what we do, if you haven't heard, is we go and we analyze those insights.
Yes.
We compile the most relevant data. We give it back to you with some suggestions on how to interpret it. And we're doing all this for the low, low price of free.
No, wait a minute. We're giving people actionable business intelligence that they can use to grow their business immediately at no cost.
Clearly, we don't have a good business model, but it will help you guys grow your business.
There you go. I love it.
Today, we are talking POS, specifically mPOS. We're talking payments. We're talking support options. So much more. It's a lot of good stuff. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to BlueStar Nation. BlueStar Nation is brought to you by the Elo Pay M100, providing the ultimate rugged, enterprise-grade mobile point-of-sale tablet in a slim, ergonomic design. 10.1-inch FHD scratch-resistant touch display, integrated payment, Android 12 OS, and a Qualcomm SD660 processor. The M100 merges powerful performance with the security, unified architecture, and extended lifecycle businesses require. All this stuff's going to be very relevant to this survey that we're going to be talking about here.
Absolutely.
In a little bit. So
yeah.
If you're looking for a device that meets the needs of the things that we're going to be talking about in today's pod, this is probably the one.
That's it. Yep.
Accept payments from anywhere with battery life to last a shift, and transition from mobile to fixed with a rotating POS dock that swivels from merchant to customer facing. To learn more and view additional specs, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar Elo team at elo@bluestarinc.com. All right, Dean, let's as always start off talking a little bit about who we talked to, why we talked to them, how we got to them. So
all that good
we
stuff.
We just went out and ran out on the street, grabbed people like, hey, you work in retail? Shake them real hard.
No.
Questions.
We got a quality audience this time around. Yes, we did.
Yes. So we deploy a third-party agency to gather survey responses. We had 99 respondents. They were recruited through a research panel, invited via email to complete the survey. Now we looked for U.S.-based retailers. They had to have like a senior department manager or up position, directors, VP heads, C-suite owners. They had to be involved in one of these four like departments or job descriptions: compliance, risk management, finance, IT, operations, or payments. And they had to have a sole decider or significant influence on POS and payment technology within the business. So there's your caveat of all the folks that we talked to in order to get this information, the people you would want to hear from and get their input, because they're the folks that are going to be responsible for buying this stuff. Absolutely. And selecting this stuff. So let's get into it, though. I want to start talking about something now. Now, mind you, this is an article that we have posted, as always, on our BlueStar Nation blog, nation.bluestarinc.com. Check it out, please. There's going to be a lot more there than we're going to cover today. We're just going to hit some of the big highlights, I think, of what I thought were some of the highlights. But there's a lot more deep dive information, and I recommend you go check it out if you want to learn some more stuff, too. So let's start off with what I thought was one of the most interesting questions that came out of this, because I think we're always talking about some of these some of these various industries, and like a key part of what we're trying to figure out sometimes is like, what do VARs want to know? What would they need to know that would help them understand how to tackle this business, or really figure out where they're supposed to go in this business or what they should be doing? So that one of the important questions we asked was, what is your preferred method for receiving technical support for your POS system? 40% of the retailers that we surveyed said in person, and that was actually 45% when you get down to the SMB level. So that's anyone that had stores, and it had the number of stores ranging from 1, I believe, up to 50 total stores. I think of that as somewhat as SMB, because we had like two more tiers above that. So, but those in that realm, 45%, so almost half, said that they wanted in-person support. To me, that makes the case for boots on the ground, in-person local VARs, right? Do you agree with this?
I would think so. Yeah. If 40% of the people that you're servicing want in-person, which is, by the way, this is all really good news. for resellers.
It really is.
In the sense that there's value behind providing that in-person technical support, but it's also a warning flag for anybody who's deviating from that, not doing an in-person. And there are many out there that are kind of getting into that game. I don't want to mention any of the names, but you've got a lot of cloud-based, et cetera, folks that are doing that. But it's interesting because when I looked at this, at the very, very bottom of the list. So in-person, 40%. Phone support, still high.
Yeah, 29%. It's not bad, yeah.
All the way at the bottom, online knowledge base. Now, I can give you a personal, story about that because, as you know, we had it's not in the POS world, but we were using a company here at BlueStar for event registration. And a lot of times we would have to customize what we were doing and stuff like that. And they always had the mantra when we had a question for them. Oh, here, just check the database or check the knowledge base. Right. Here's a link to an article that will help you navigate your problem. And that
do the work yourself.
That became like the in-house joke. It's like, no, we don't want a knowledge base. We don't want to link to something, especially when you're dealing with point of sale systems that are mission critical.
Right.
You're not going to want a knowledge base, right? Do you like? Can you
see? I mean, I'm a do it myself kind of guy sometimes, but. To that point, though, I've been on some of these knowledge bases in some places where you get that kind of like, hey, go check out the knowledge base. And you go there, and there are 6 billion different questions.
That's right.
You have to weed through to find, okay, is there a question someone asked that actually got a good response? Here's 5 people that asked the exact same question. 4 of them, one person responded, and it was pointless. The 5th one, someone from the company responded, but that was 6 years ago.
That's right.
And it's not actually how the technology currently works.
That's right.
I don't get me wrong. I understand the value of those things.
Oh, sure.
If they are kept updated and heavily maintained and streamlined, but that's rarely the case.
Yeah.
So, yes, if that is your primary attitude about technical support is send them to a database somewhere, you're probably not doing very well by then.
That's right. And again, we're talking about technical support. Now, I do think that you can use an online universe, and we'll get into this in just a second, maybe for like training, something like that that's non-mission critical, but still a benefit to the end user, obviously in this case, or something like that. Okay,
right.
But clearly, to your point, this makes an argument for boots on the ground, making sure that you have good technical support staff that can manage not only your POS system, but perhaps we'll get into this a little bit as well, some of the peripheral stuff that you're doing there. So
and at the very least, I think what people are saying here, between the in-person and the 29% that wanted the phone support, that's 69% of respondents that said they want some kind of human contact.
That's a really good way to put it.
If I need support and help with my system, I want to talk to a human, whether it's in person or on the phone. I just want to at least speak to somebody to help me get through these problems. And I get it because especially in retail where it's a high stress, fast moving, something's wrong with your POS system, that could mean a lot of trouble and a lot of sales that you lose in a day. You want to get it up and running as quickly as possible. And sometimes just getting a person on the phone or in your shop working on it can make that happen so much faster than, I got to go email somebody, wait for a response. I got to chat. Because I don't know about you. I'm sure you've done like chats online before, which again, can be valuable. But sometimes if you do a chat, you know that person is chatting with like 30 people at the same time.
Absolutely.
You got to wait until they get back around to you in the queue before you move on. That's frustrating
happens all the time. Yeah.
So in my mind, this is a differentiator against some of like the 800 POS system folks that are out there. Because those companies are not the ones that are doing the local support because they're broad.
Well, their business model is different.
Companies, right?
Their business model is different, and that's okay. But to your point, and the word is differentiation. This is a way for resellers to differentiate themselves by leaning into the in-person type of support. There's no doubt about it, and that comes through with this particular survey.
But my caveat there also is if you are going to offer this kind of support, whether it's in-person phone support, make sure that you are always there when they need you. Like not just I offer in-person
not banker
support,
hours,
but only like one Tuesday of the month between 8 and noon or something, right? Or your phone support is only open, for 8 hours a day on the East Coast or something like that. That's the kind of thing where that's going to get you in trouble. Again, especially in a retail environment where problems can happen at any time, or more importantly, where like during certain times of the year, it's busier than ever and there's more, overtaxing a POS system that could potentially shut it down.
Yeah.
And you might need to be available then.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as part of your
But I
offering.
do think, again, just to kind of dive in a little bit, when you think about online, I'm bashing it on the support side, but I do think from a training and education perspective, it can have some value.
Yes,
and
it
so. When I think about it, because we've riffed on this program about how another differentiator that the reseller can bring is the training portion of the solution equation. Like helping folks out with training is definitely something that they can do. And so when you think about it, that's really ripe for an online type of environment. When you think about it, training staff is a very difficult thing for retailers or hospitality folks to do with some consistency. And if you can help them navigate that with online type of apparatus or tools, like for example, if you create a custom point of sale, which a lot of these integrated systems are,
right.
Who's to say you can't create a quick Loom? We're starting to use Loom, which is just a tool set where you can see the screen and you can talk at the same time with a little camera on you. And then post that to like a free LMS service. And now you've created this little library that people can use as a tool of training their employees on an ongoing basis. What a differentiator that would be for you as a reseller to do that.
I agree. Yeah. Well, since you mentioned training, that also lends itself a little bit to our next survey question that we want to get into. So we were asking some questions here about mobile point of sale in particular to kind of get a feel for how much retailers are and aren't using it. Now, first of all, before I get into this particular question here, when we surveyed everyone, we asked them like, hey, are you using stationary only? Are you using a combination? Are you using mPOS only? No one said they were only using mobile POS, which I feel like is probably pretty much what I would expect. I mean, I would have thought maybe you might have captured one or two that were only using it.
Right.
But for the most part, I'd say most retailers are still, we've got something stationary, but we might be using mobile as well.
Yeah.
About half said they were stationary only, though. That was 40% of the large retailers and 60% of those in the mid-tier, which was just 21 to 50 stores. That were actually 60% of the mid-tier overall, which I think was 51 to 100 stores or something like that. And then those that were in the 21 to 50 stores range seemed like they were the ones that were more likely to say that they were offering both. So I think that kind of like upper, let's say, of the SMB, the upper of the SMB, upper echelon or whatever, were the ones that were more likely to say that they were using both. And I know this isn't in the final article we put out there, but I was digging into some of the background data here that I thought was useful. So that was what they were saying, to give you a caveat of understanding where we're coming from here. But we also then ask a question like, all right, so for those of you that aren't using mobile POS at the moment, which I think there was 45 respondents that said they simply weren't at all, what is the top barriers to you doing that?
Yeah.
Number one was cost,
right?
Associated cost, which, let's be honest, that's usually going to be, you give someone an option for cost and they're probably going to pick cost. So number two was integration, like being able to integrate with their existing systems. And number three was training.
Yep.
To me, those last two in particular, the integration and the training, are something, and you just mentioned earlier, that is pretty primed to be addressed by VARs working with them, helping them make sure that the system that you're creating for that, if you are getting them into mPOS, that it's integrated with what they're currently doing, and again, more importantly, that you're giving them the kind of training tools they need to help them get up and running quickly, get new folks up and running quickly. Absolutely,
right? So I mean, you're just trying to augment the whole experience, the customer experience, by enabling this mobile point of sale. I mean, that's what the whole idea behind it is. And I guess there is consideration on the integration concerns. I would have. Sometimes I am a little bit baffled by that. In this day and age, you would think that most software has the componentry that it's going to display on a mobile device and enable that to happen. But I'm guessing there's a lot of legacy systems. As I'm saying this, we've had the survey before where how often, these things are usually embedded for
it's like
years.
Like 5 to 10 years is average. And I think for a not insignificant number, 10 years plus.
There you go. So integrating mPOS might be clearly
that's
is
a good point.
one of the
if your POS was created before mobile devices even existed, there's a good chance you're not going to have the integration tools that you might need.
That's right. But the training needs are well as we just talked about. And I was thinking about this. I think when you have 55% of retailers that are using some combination of stationary and mobile, to me that's I'll just restate it again. That seems surprisingly low. It just seems like we had been talking about mPOS for a long time as a company, and I guess We were early adopters, of course, because we're in distribution and
Right.
that kind of thing. But that's just an indicator that's not there. So I was thinking to myself, well, okay, if I'm a reseller, then how do I enable this? And one of the best uses of mPOS that I had from an experiential standpoint, I was at a large clothing manufacturer's shop at one of the malls here locally, and I thought they had a brilliant use of mPOS. So there's the normal line, and the line gets huge at some points during the day. And in fact, I got kind of caught in that. The line was short, and we're shopping, and then by the time we got to the line, oh my gosh, now it's this long line. Well, out popped this what I will call pop-up mPOS. They had this little cart, and they had the tablet to do the transaction, and the cart really had kind of like some bags on it and stuff like that. And what they did is they took specifically people that had low item counts. So if you only have a couple things, come on over here real quick.
Easy to bag,
literally on a cart, and they're just zipping around like beep, and then out the door. So I had one thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll take that. That's brilliant use of mPOS. So to me, if I was like a reseller, I would come up with my own pop-up solution.
There you go.
I guess
because you can sell more than just there could be a barcode scanner there. You could be 100%. The card itself potentially.
100%, absolutely. But you need to show them the way, them being your end user, your customer, how they can do this rather quickly.
Yep.
And so when they think about, okay, so do you like this idea of a mobile pop-up? Sure. Okay, well, now let's get into the integration. I can handle that type of thing. Training on it, easy. We can do these types of things. It's a holistic thing. But again, I was thinking to myself, there's got to be ways that resellers can enable this, and showing them solutions like that, it would be a great way of doing that.
Well, to me also, that's one of those great and simple ways that you can just be out and about doing your daily life and come across an opportunity where if you were in your situation and you're out shopping somewhere and there's these huge lines, and I mean, again, I know holiday times that might be fairly common and expected to some extent. But let's say it's not the holidays, or let's say it's the holidays and they only have one or two POS that are available and they simply don't have room for anything else. So it's not like they have the options to make that any thinner during that time. That's a great way for you to pull them aside and say, hey, let me give you my card. I'm going to stop back in when it's not so crazy here because I think I can help you out with this situation in the long lines.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah. Improve your customer experience.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt about it.
And say it loud enough so that some of the customers in the back hear us. They can be like, yeah, we'd like that, That might encourage them a bit there. All right. I will also note, too, that when we created this, we posted those top 3, but the next one up right behind training was security. So that was also a big concern when it came to mobile POS is being able to is the security of it is whether they were concerned about that being an option. All right, let's talk about trending features. And let me give you first of all a caveat here. So when we worked with ELO, which by the way was the sponsor of this article. I
thank you, ELO,
for not saying it up front. Thank you so much to them. We were working with them on hey, what are some of the things you would like to know about, or you think our VARs want to know about? And we take their guidance and then craft that into what we think that our customers are really going to be interested in hearing about. And they were asking, they had a lot of potential questions about payment stuff, which we did include in our original survey. And I'll be honest, not that we didn't think it was useful, but a lot of it was pretty table stakes stuff where, we found out that 98% of the retailers that responded said that they were taking contactless payments. So to me, at that point means, all right, contactless is table stakes.
98% is where we're at now?
Yeah.
Dude, you and I guess this podcast has been on long enough where we first debated the use of context. It's Europe does it so much better than we do.
And we were frustrated because you would go somewhere and try to use our phone or our watch and they'd be like, what are you doing? I'm trying to pay,
Dude, back then, adaptation had to be in the 20% range, maybe? Yeah. You're saying 98% now of this survey.
Of this survey. So basically, I think it was all but one retailer that responded said, yes, we take contactless payments.
There you
go.
And
that was up and down, from every tier at every level. There's not just the big box stores. Most of them were taking Apple, Google, and Samsung Pay in particular. We asked about a lot of the payment types, and those 3, which are the 3 biggest platforms, were almost I think it was 70% of
70%
stores were taking all 3 of those. So that was there. So it was the kind of thing where a lot of the payments questions the responses were basically like, yeah, we're all pretty much doing this. We're all on board. We're all cool with it. We don't have a problem with it. So, a lot of that information was stuff we didn't necessarily throw into the final article because it just didn't seem particularly relevant in deep detail that we wouldn't already have assumed or known. But we did ask about trending features and trends basically within payments and what would most appeal to folks in a payment solution. The top 3 responses there were omni-channel support, AI fraud detection. Now, large retailers in particular, 70% of them cited that as their most preferred trend in payments that they were interested in. And the last being payment trends that were eco-friendly, meaning eco-friendly solutions overall from a hardware perspective, as well as maybe like the option to like not print receipts or give customers the option to opt out of receipts, et cetera. So those are the big 3 trends when it came to payments. Now, before I ask your opinion here, the omni-channel one in particular stuck out to me, or what is it that Tony Boncory loves to call it instead? Unified commerce.
Yes.
E-commerce.
We're not allowed to use phygital anymore.
We're not really using the omni-channel thing. But to me, that is one of those things I think that supports the whole idea of loyalty programs, which a lot of retailers are desperately trying to figure out, like, how can I create loyalty among my customers? And I think having that kind of, I've noticed this in pharmacies a lot, where they will keep a payment on file. And whether you are buying from their app, whether you are prepaying for something, or if you're at the drive-through or in the store, they're just like, hey, I don't need to see your, or punch in a phone number and I've got everything. I've got your card already loaded up.
Your persona's already there.
I've already got everything I need to know about you.
I'll be darned.
I've got coupons loaded up here. We're good to go. It's all unified together. So to me, that is one of those great selling points about a payment solution. If it's something where, hey, this will create a unified experience no matter where someone's shopping and how they're doing it, they'll be able to pay the way they want to pay.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on
that's
those
a good
trends?
one. Well, I zoned in on the number 2 one, which is AI-powered fraud detection.
Yeah.
For me, it's the first time that AI, you and I have talked about it, this is the year that like AI needs to be task-oriented. Okay, we've been talking a lot about AI, but here it is in actual use case and doing some good work when you think about it. So again, 29% of folks who are interested in AI-powered fraud detection to prevent fraudulent transactions in real time. And so when you think about that, there's a lot going on in there. You can have real time, anomaly detection where based on behaviors, I guess, when you dive a little bit more into what's going on with the AI and stuff in fraud detection, it's all, a lot of it is behavior related. Do these purchases make sense? Are we seeing any kind of trends as it relates to returns on particular items? And then, maybe they can kind of cross-reference and say, hey, wait a minute, we're detecting some fraud here.
Right.
It gets into biometrics. We've talked a little bit about in previous podcasts about people's appetite for enabling biometrics, whether it's facial recognition or something like that. We all agree. I think we're going to see more and more of that because it just makes a lot of sense on the fraud detection side. If you can't detect who I am, I mean, that's just a main barrier, right? I mean, I'm trying to make the purchase. Is it you? Oh, well, no.
Right.
Biometrics really, really helps on that.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example of this and why. Like, I looked at that too and thought, like, man, that's a nice to have thing. A few years back, I was on vacation with the family, and we had a day, like it was like a beach vacation. I think my wife and her sisters went to the beach one day, and I took my son off for something different, and we found a little amusement park.
Yep.
And I'm sitting in the parking lot of the amusement park. So again, very small little place, but I was like, this will eat up some time, something fun to do today. And I saw, I was looking up like what ticket prices were. They had the option to buy tickets on their website. So I'm on my phone in the car. I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and buy the tickets because it was like a little bit cheaper to prepay there than to buy them, at the ticket booth. I'm like, great. I did that. About 4 hours later, I started getting phone calls from my credit card company. Missed the first couple of them. Finally took one and was basically told, hey, we think your card's been compromised. And then I go and check, and sure enough, someone has gotten a hold of my card number, and it's somewhere out in California. I was in Florida at the time. They're out in California and are, racking up $40, $50, $60, $70, $80 bills at various fast food joints, around a city in California.
Yep.
And and granted, the card company, wiped those, and I didn't have to pay for it or anything eventually. But still, there was at least, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 fraudulent payments that happened. To me, this is the kind of thing where, like, the first time something like that happens and some AI is able to pick up on this is weird because there was just a transaction here in Florida. And I know they had some of that already, obviously, in order to get them to the point that they were calling me. But I feel like it could have happened a little bit faster. Like it could have happened quick enough that it wasn't a hours later thing. And because the credit card company is the one that has to eat that. At the end of the day,
right?
Because all those folks got all their free food, and those companies got paid for that free food, and the credit card company has to eat that eventually.
Yep.
Imagine how much could have been saved with that, though, if there'd been a little extra layer of intelligence to catch that a little bit faster. Or, to your point, the biometrics, where when that person is presenting that card, that card number, and someone's like, all right, are you John Martin? Oh, wait, you're not John Martin. You can't buy this at
that's
all.
Right. That's
never even potentially would have had that.
Well, I think that's where it's all going. I mean, and that's why I think biometrics is, whether you like it or not, it's clearly, from a security standpoint, it's kind of in the no-brainer category type of a thing. And that's why I think it's going to get a lot more run. I think your use case is valid, but I also think about, from a reseller standpoint, what this survey is telling me, that since AI is now popping out in the survey, number one. Number two, there are actionable things that I think people are doing by integrating AI into their overall solution. So from a reseller's perspective, if I sat back and said, okay, what is my solution? Is there any AI getting baked into maybe some of the back-end analytics? Okay, well, think about it. If you're an SMB, let's just say a mid-size retailer of some sort, 50 stores, 100 stores. We got a lot of resellers out there that service that type of an entity. Well, they would benefit from some AI on the background that's detecting fraudulent behavior, maybe on returns. I'll just go back down that path again. Where you're starting to see a certain item getting returned a lot. Well, what's going on here? Maybe that throws up a red flag the next time somebody tries to do that and detects, maybe this was stolen goods, or maybe it was something else along those lines. I mean, I really think that if you're a reseller, you need to start thinking about, if 30% of retailers out there are interested in what is trending as it relates to AI and actionable stuff that can happen, you need to start brushing up what you can actually do on that front. Or what your software provider, if you're aligned with a software provider, what are they getting into to help you enable this and get into it?
If you're an AI skeptic, I mean, that's all well and good, but your customers are clearly interested in it.
Absolutely.
And you at least need to be able to have that conversation with them about it. Maybe in your mind, the conversation is, hey, I don't see any particular value in this, and then let them decide. But if you're not willing to have that conversation at all, that doesn't look good for you. That looks like you are on the outside looking in, and maybe they're like, I'm going to go talk to this other provider because you don't seem like you're even remotely interested in my particular concerns.
That's right.
My interest in this technology.
That's right. Yeah. And because, end users are getting flooded by it just as we are. They see things like machine vision and being able to utilize that at checkout. If you have any kind of self-serve, which a lot of entities do at this point in time, people are starting to mount cameras so that they can do quick checks on, well, this person actually has 5 items, but they only scanned 4. Fraud, type of a thing. I mean, some basic stuff like that you should probably start to get knowledgeable
Can it go the other way where, like, when I accidentally scan something twice and don't realize it because I'm like scanning it,
you overscan
as I'm reaching over to put it in the bag, I somehow scanned it again and didn't realize it, or my kid decides he wants to grab something and scan it too, and he scans something that I already did, or he does it twice. That would be fine.
That would be nice. Yes.
Fraud detection going the other way. Like, hey, the store's trying to rip you off. We're gonna make that right for you.
I like that. I like what a great customer experience. Not the store's doing it on
purpose, but yeah.
No. Did you scan one too many times, kind of a thing? Yeah, it'd be nice to get that kind
you
of feedback.
scanned 6, but it looks like you only have 5. Please confirm. That'd be a nice thing to have.
Yep.
So. All right. Well, is there any other responses that stood out to you? Anything else on this survey that jumped out at you that you want to call out here?
2 other things that kind of jumped out at me. Again, I'm going to go back to the training, but what we found in this survey is more than half of the respondents spend 3 to 4 hours training new employees on their POS. I'm sorry, I took one from you. No, it's
fine.
But there you go. So if I'm a reseller, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if on average they're spending 3 to 4 hours, that's a lot of time. That's a half a day.
And there was, I think, 19% that were 4 hours plus?
17%.
17%.
It takes more.
A not insignificant number either. Yeah.
No, that's not insignificant at all. So you should think to yourself, well, can the programming be a little bit more intuitive? Is there a way that we can make this solution not demand 4 hours plus of training just to utilize. I mean, I guess I understand some environments might be difficult just by the volume of products or something like that, like a grocery store. I don't know.
Right.
But most, how is it taking 4 hours? And then the other thing that I thought to myself, again, just going back into the training, what can you provide training augmentation, whether in store or by, using a free LMS to create these looms or little videos that can help support your customers, because clearly training people is an expense. Number one, it takes a long time. And it's probably very challenging for them.
It's a barrier to changing technologies too.
Yes,
we've covered that in other surveys before, where people have said, "Hey, I might be interested in another point of sale system, but the idea of having to retrain my entire staff and get it implemented and running while I'm trying to run a business that is operating on thin margins, I can't do it. That's why I'm still using the same system for 10 years."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think there's a good opportunity there. The other thing that stuck out to me, and I don't know what to do with this one, 44% of respondents experienced monthly technical difficulties with payment processing.
Yeah.
So to me, payment processing is like one of those things, I thought you just set it and forget it. Like
you would think.
How is that breaking? I guess it's my own ignorance in this. But, if VARs realize this, then, obviously I would stay close to my customer.
Yes.
If 44% of my customers are experiencing monthly technical difficulties with the payment, man, I got to stay close. I got to understand what the issues are so that I can help to mitigate that or at least be aware of it. I don't know. Was that surprising to you? Or now that you hear it, was that one of those?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I'm like, that is a lot. Because, I mean, again, it's one of those things where, let's say you get disrupted for like an hour of taking payments. How much money potentially are you losing when that happens?
With that frequency, monthly?
Yeah.
44% every month, there's some kind of technical difficulty with payment processing. Again, I'll just restate it. I thought that was like initial setup, get the bank talking to my bank and
that's it. And we're good to go. Yeah.
And just leave it, walk away from the dealer table.
Something you better be checking into.
Apparently not. Yeah. So what did you see? Any other data that stood out to you?
Well, the training one stood out to me as well. The only other one that really did, and this is, maybe it's not too surprising, but at the same time, 83% of these folks said that they were using a POS device that had payments integrated into it, not a separate terminal.
Yep.
Are terminals going away?
Maybe.
Is that what we're looking at here?
Yes.
Because, it's one of those things where I would have, if it had been more like a 50-50, I would have been like, okay, that makes sense, because I feel like there are, a lot of like upscale shops and maybe like newer places that are, or the ones that are just grabbing some kind of simple POS system where it's all just an all-in-one. I get those entirely. But I still feel like there's a not insignificant number of places you go to that still have a separate payment terminal sitting at the side.
Yeah, I don't think go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just curious, like, is that what we're talking about here? Are we suggesting that retailers are just moving away from that, and that external terminal is potentially going to be a thing of the past in another decade or so?
I don't think the terminal is going away in the sense that, but clearly there's a move towards integration, meaning, okay, I can still use the terminal, but that's speaking to my software, and it's an integrated solution as opposed to just the standalone. If you go to whatever, your local dry cleaner, and it's the transaction is happening over here. But I think that's a commentary on just the move towards things like loyalty. And I mean, you have to have this integrated system if you're going to have any of the benefits of trying to understand who your customer is, trying to market to them, trying to get the analytics behind it, trying to enable loyalty programs. I mean, you can't have your payments on an island. That's not integrated into that if you don't. So did you say 83% are now?
83% were integrated, had a POS system that had integrated payments.
That is a big move because, again, I can remember a time when that was sub 50%. And then now, but again, I'll just restate, not maybe surprising to me, maybe the adoption's a little bit faster than I thought, because it seemed like it was taking a while for integration to happen, but clearly the
like
benefits are there.
The contactless payments, like, I think it was a 0 to 60 very quickly. We went from nobody was taking contactless payments. It was always on a terminal. And I mean, because let's go back to, and we've talked about this on the pod before too, this transition from swipe to chip and how slow and monolithic and difficult that was, and felt like it took the better part of a decade before everyone more or less got on board. And yet, in a much shorter volume of time, we've seen this quick adoption of contactless, NFC payments, the NFC on the cards or whatever, and I guess now these integrated payment solutions. So it's like there's some pretty rapid evolution that's been happening, and I mean, I would say that probably a lot of that had to do with COVID, where you know that desire for the touchless transaction pushed a lot of folks into some of these technologies that they weren't already necessarily looking at before.
True.
And I guess it's one of those things that once you go that route and you're willing to accept that kind of technology, then the rest of it just follows suit because it's all just being built under the same parameters.
Yeah. As you're talking though, I'm thinking to myself, God love them. There is a local car wash entity that was very early adopter to mPOS. Okay. They have tablets. Imagine you pull up to a car wash. They have people that are line busting, for lack of a better term. They're all the way out there. They've got their tablet. They're taking your order, stuff like that. They are swiping your card back in the day. Well, they are still swiping your card today.
I have noticed that.
I'm not going to mention because I love them and I go there all the time.
It's probably the same one I'm thinking. We'll talk offline.
But I think it's the only place that I'm aware of right now that does the swipe still.
I agree. That is something I always notice too when I hand them my card and they don't stick it in
or tap.
One thing, it'd be cool if they were tapping, but the fact that because I've seen other places where they're using mobile and they stick it into a slot. But I've noticed every time they're always swiping because every now and then you'll get that one where they're like,
no, that's where I was going to go.
It's not
Mine
working.
never works. So they have to actually key in my whole. And the guy last time was like, I'm sorry, this isn't working. Do you mind if I look at your credit card number and key it in? I'm like, no, bro, go for it. I mean, if you can memorize all those numbers, I guess. But, isn't it, the commentary was here you had an early adopter maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But today, man, they're behind the times.
That really is. You're absolutely right.
Now they feel old to me. Like, oh, you're still doing the card swipe? Yeah, there's got to be a technology refresh there. But anyway.
Good times. All right. Well, again, if you want a deeper dive into some of these findings that we had to learn a little bit more about some of the payment stuff,
great article.
Some of the POS stuff.
Great article.
Go to BlueStar Nation and check that out. I'll drop the link directly to this survey in our show notes as well. Hey, what's happening around BlueStar Nation right now? Hey, did you know that BlueStar is a custom configuration team? Dean, did you know this?
I did know that.
Okay,
but I'm biased, and
I would hope you knew this. I have to question some things if you didn't.
Really.
But you, our dear viewer, listener, you really should know this too.
Yes, you should.
So we have an in-house custom configuration team and department that delivers solutions that fulfill your requirements for projects of any scope and can ship to domestic or international destinations serviced by FedEx, UPS, and DHL. We also have a scalable network of field service providers that can deliver projects in the continental U.S. when and where you need them. So we're talking things like hardware configuration, loading applications and software, custom packaging, kitting and staging, asset tagging, key injections, so much more.
So much more.
I mean, I think of like this conversation we've just had about these integrated point of sale systems and all this stuff that you want to do, and maybe they're adopting a mobile point of sale. Well, imagine instead of you getting there and having like a dozen boxes of every different device of a screen and a cash register and a printer and the payment terminal and the mobile POS and the software, and you got to do it all yourself and load it all up and take it to them, or it's being delivered to them and you got to show up and get it all set up and running. We can do most of that work for you.
Absolutely. We can help you scale, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you win that one big deal and you're configuring that, but now you got to throw it in 1,000 restaurants or 1,000 locations or whatever. We can help you scale.
Yep.
We can package all that, kit it all up. And you know what that team has?
Slap your name and label on it, make it look like it's all just from you. Yeah.
And what that team has a really hard time saying is no. Like you hit them with the challenge, they'll be like, they're gonna roll up their sleeves and they're gonna figure out how to get it done.
Exactly.
Yeah, love those guys.
Yep. So at the end of the day, this is all designed to give you a competitive edge, improve your margins, and again, as I mentioned, the bonus is we let you take the credit. We're not going to say like, hey,
that's right.
Tell them BlueStar did this. No, it's you. As far as they know, this was all your baby and the ones that did it. So to learn more, again, go to the show notes, check out a link under our custom configuration page, or go to thebluestarinc.com, look for programs and services. You'll find information there. There's also a great video that we shot last year with some of the team talking about how they do this and what the process looks like, and you get to see a little behind the scenes. Fantastic stuff. Please check into them. Again, talk to them. They're not going to say no. They are dying to work with folks like you. They love doing this kind of stuff. Check it out. You should be doing some custom configuration with us. All right, as always, if you like the show, you got to take a moment to do something, anything. Just every episode that you listen to, I want you to do one little thing, whether it's like the episode on YouTube.
That's so easy.
Subscribe to our channel if you're not already. Send a link to someone else. If you're listening on just the audio only, again, leave us a review, leave us a rating, share it. If you typically stream an episode, just download it for once.
There you go.
It's nice to have those download numbers. It helps us get a little more traction, help us get a little more visibility to other folks that might need to discover this podcast. So please do that when you can. Again, check out the BlueStar Nation blog. We're doing a lot of amazing stuff over there. Even outside of these surveys, there's just some good content over there to help you win and grow and market and learn about sales. And of course, as always, send your ideas to us. We want to know what you want to hear about on the show. There's actually someone who submitted an idea to us last year that I am finally working on getting someone on the podcast to talk about.
There it is.
I'm not gonna say exactly what it is in case it falls through, but hopefully that's happening in an upcoming episode, and we'll shout them out and let them know that that's gonna happen. But we do listen to these ideas when you want to hear us about stuff on the show. And of course, as always, reach out to us. You can always find us on BlueStar's LinkedIn, Facebook pages, or email us anytime, nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, Dean, let's wrap up here. Let's do a little extra VAR value.
Yep.
So let's pare this down. If you were a VAR and you had just heard this podcast or reviewed that survey data, you dug through it all, what are you going to do with it? Are there any immediate considerations, any immediate conversations, actions to take? What would you do with all this data we've just thrown at you?
I would do three things. I would lean into in-person support. I would understand AI better, and I would make sure that I'm polishing up my training capabilities. So as we call it out here, in-person support is huge, still very, very valued by the end user. So if you were thinking, you know what, I'm thinking about some ways of automating my support, or maybe I'll integrate a call center, or maybe I'll create a knowledge base where I can send my No, don't do it. Just stay with the in-person support because
Dean
it's a
says
differentiator.
No. You will wrap your hand with a ruler.
There you go. It's a differentiator for you. Understand a little bit more about what's going on in AI. Don't stick your head in the ground. Have the conversation. I think your advice was brilliant there. Have the conversation. What are your customers looking at? What are they interested by? Go back, do a little bit of research, find some partners to enable that, and then finally the training. Again, if you can think of a way to differentiate, lean in, help your customers by maybe coming up with some new innovative ways through online LMSs or something like that you can create for them, and now they have this experience where they can train their employees because it is a pain point for them. So anyway, what did you think?
Well, I'm going to reiterate, asking your customers what their experience is it reflected in this data? Like, go to them and say, hey, you know what? I just read a survey that said X amount of people are struggling with this. The payments thing, they said that they were having payments problems once a month. Is that happening to you? It is? Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how I can help you out with that. Just ask some questions and find out if this data is reflected in your customers. If it is, then you have some talking points, and you have some challenges maybe you could help them solve. To your point again, Dean, audit your support practices. Figure out what you are or aren't doing when it comes to support, and how you can maybe lean into what the preferences are for some kind of personal touch. Add integrated POS solutions to your portfolio. If you're not already doing that for some reason, this is the time. And again, our folks at ELO, they've got a lot of those kind of solutions that are out there. That's a big part of why they asked us to run this surveys. They wanted to get a lay of what was happening in the land. So, look for those kind of solutions and add them to your portfolio as well. And maybe you can go out there and find some new business in retail and point of sale that you weren't before, or at least a way to augment your current business with them. All right, good stuff. Let's get to wrap up as always with what's on our radar, our favorite segment where we get to talk about any old thing in tech, innovation, science, business, the news, just something random we want to talk about. What's on your radar this week?
Well, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you like to chew on wood?
I don't.
Like toothpicks or shims, mulch? Sawdust cereal.
There's a BDM on our team. It's a big fan of chewing on the toothpick. I bet you know exactly who it is.
Oh, yes. Yes,
all the time I see him with a toothpick in his mouth. And it's always one of those things I'm like, I never could do it. Never saw the appeal of that.
Maybe I'll change your mind. Chewing wood might boost your memory. Chewing on moderately hard foods might actually do more than just break down your lunch, says this survey. A recent study published by the Frontiers in Neuroscience explored how chewing different materials affects the brain and found that chewing on wood compared to chewing gum or things like that led to a significant increase in brain antioxidants called glutathione. But anyway, and that then supports the ability for your brain to have better memory. So they had 52 health university students in South Korea, went through this whole study where they compared people chewing gum to people chewing small wooden sticks. Think of it like a popsicle stick. Right?
Okay,
That's what they had them. And in summary, the study yielded two major findings. First, the wood chewing group experienced stimulated of brain that glycogen synthesis, leading to increased GSH levels, which again leads to memory, and that correlated to analysis of improving the overall cognitive measures of the person when they were chewing on wood. There you go.
What does it do for your bowel movements? That's what
I don't know. Well, you're going the fiber angle. Everybody needs good fiber.
You do.
I didn't
that
say
might
swallow. I just said you got to chew on a piece of wood.
All right.
Like the toothpick, I guess, right?
I mean,
maybe the really brilliant people out there are chewing on toothpicks.
Maybe they are. Yeah, I don't know. But I feel like when I see smart people, I don't typically see them chewing on wood. Maybe it's something you do on the side. I don't know. Like maybe it's their best kept secret or something. All right. Next time I see a stick laying,
I don't think I've convinced you to chew on some wood. But anyway,
no, not necessarily. I mean, okay. Here's next time I'm stumped and I'm trying to rattle my brain about something and figure out something. I'm going to grab a toothpick, chew on it, and if I get there any faster, then we might be onto something.
There it is.
If I just accidentally swallow the toothpick and start choking. Well, there's our answer too.
Blame me.
There's our Darwin Award moment right there.
There you go. So what's on your radar?
Well, Dean, do you have a VCR laying around your house anywhere still?
I have a VCR TV combo. Yes,
wow,
I do
you
still have
one.
It's down in the basement. I don't know if it works. I think it does, but it's been down there for a long time.
Well, kind of like how vinyl has made a comeback in the music industry, there might be some appeal to VHS tapes.
What is the possible appeal to VHS? I'm already discrediting this.
So I don't think this will take off in quite the same way the vinyl thing hits. Because at least with vinyl, I get the idea like, all right, it's a different kind of sound and maybe a little bit of a richer sound for some folks.
It's very analog. Very analog.
Like I get that. VHS, I'm sorry, but it's unless you just like 4x3, and potentially like weird little squiggly lines moving across the screen and rewinding every damn time you watch something. Yeah. It's more of a nostalgia thing than anything.
It has to be that.
Apparently there are some studios that are putting out, and again, right now we're not talking like only doing this or mass producing it, but like limited edition, more of like a collectible thing for VHS tapes. And there's a few upcoming movies and recent movies that are doing this. But the big prominent one, and the reason why this kind of became a topic in the forefront recently is the latest Alien film that came out, I believe last year or the year before, Alien Romulus. Got a special VHS release edition because the director, who is right around my age, because he grew up with that, was like, hey, I just thought it'd be a cool, neat little collector's item. And I remember watching the original Alien movies on VHS back in the day and that experience. So he actually did create like a kind of a recropped 4x3 version to play on it. Like not even doing like just translating widescreen and throwing it on there, but actually made the effort to make it look like it was VHS native.
I'll be darned.
And put it out there for a limited edition cinematic, kind of thing for folks that want that particular experience. And granted, don't be wrong, I was a big VHS guy for a long time. And well, it was the only choice we had.
That was the only choice. Yes.
But I didn't hold on to it for very long. Once DVD came along, I pretty quickly tossed those.
Absolutely.
And I could not tell you the last time I actually had a VHS or any tapes around to use.
Yeah, no.
But maybe coming soon to near you, there might be some.
I don't know.
Now, will we get to resurrect like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video too if we do that? Because that might be entertaining.
This has to be the younger generation with no context of what the hell of a VHS was compared to where we're at today.
Well, it's like if you watched it too many times, it started wearing thin, and you could break your tapes.
There's I'm not into the nostalgia. I'm with you. Album, I get it. Analog, got it. VHS, there's no reason to go back there. Just watch a movie that's been converted via letterbox onto a 4x3 and VHS. It's just like it's the worst possible way to watch TV
Exactly.
compared to where we're at today.
Well, I've noticed I find it difficult sometimes if I watch an old show like pre-2000s, mid-2000s, when everything went widescreen. When everything went widescreen. And granted, they've taken some old shows like Friends, for instance, and on some of the streaming networks, services, they will take those old shows and retrofit them. And it's very expensive to do that, to convert them into a widescreen format and upgrade the digital files or whatever to make it more applicable for streaming. But for instance, I've been over the years watching through all the old Star Trek shows, and I remember watching like TNG, the Next Generation. They did do an upgrade for that. So if you watch that streaming, it is a widescreen cinematic type experience.
Yep.
But then the next series, Deep Space Nine, which is I think the most underrated Star Trek show, I will stand by that every day, all day, every day. That one and Voyager, the next one after that, were both still in the old 4x3 format. And sometimes that's hard when you're on this big wide screen. I just remember my son sometimes walking through and being like, "Daddy, what's wrong with the screen? Right. Why is it cut off on the side?" It's like, "Well, son, when I was your age, this is how all television looked."
It's interesting because I guarantee you they did the production on film, which is 16
exactly.
by 9. So if they go back and had the original materials, they could probably not do the whatever to generate the 16 by 9, but actually use what was shot in camera.
Exactly. Yeah.
All those TV shows, by the way, same. Seinfeld, Friends, those were all shot in film.
Maybe there was like a whole extra character you never knew was in the show because they were always
stage right or stage left. You just barely off to the side. Yeah. That's good.
Who knows what could open up about a show, So there you go. That's what's on our radar this week. So until next time, folks, go out, chew some wood, and
get smart.
And look for the special VHS edition of this podcast coming to a video store near you. Okay. I don't know. We'll mail it out or something if you make a request. No, we're not going to do that. I can see that now. Like, hey, Marco, put together a VHS version of the podcast for us. That didn't happen. See you folks out there in the nation.